I think like the only thing that hasn't changed is simply building stuff is going to help you learn. And if you are able to build way more and way larger stuff now that you have AI and the lessons that you have, like you're going to go down so many rabbit holes. And I will tell you, please go down those rabbit holes and deeply understand the problems that you hit rather than just swearing into the box. Because when you fully, deeply understand what these problems are and how you could possibly tackle and solve them, that is going to make you a better developer, but the better person who makes things. Welcome to Syntax. Today we're talking about, I don't understand ShadCN. We got a potluck episode. This is you bring the questions. Why use PNPM over NPM? What does the standards process look like? We'll take a look into that. Like if something gets added to HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the browsers, like how does that even happen? What does that process look like, right? What should you focus on in the age of AI, especially for beginners, right? Should you go low level and like understand the fundamentals really well, or should you go high level in like architecture and kind of like steering? Kind of interesting answer to that one. Also, really interesting question about design systems. Why do no design systems use our modern features, right? We have dialogue and anchor and popover and scroll snap and like all of these new amazing HTML features. And it seems like, especially in React land, none of them use them. So we're going to answer why that is. Submit your questions to us. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on a podcast coming up, go to syntax.fm. In the nav, there's a button that says potluck. You can type your question in and we'll answer it on an upcoming episode. Let's get into it. First question from Digital Surfer says, hello, Syntax OG listener. First time potluck questioner. Thank you for sending that in. I have been doing front-end development for a long time. I've seen many different CSS component approaches from Bootstrap to preprocessors, scoped components, utility classes, CSS, JS, etc., etc. For every single approach, I see the pros and cons, but my question regarding specifically ShadCN approach, what is the benefit of installing components in our project? I understand we own the code, but is that a good thing? How do we handle updates? What happens if a component has a vulnerability after we update all of our custom code gets deleted? I'm having a hard time understanding the pros of this approach. Okay, so if you've never used ShadCN, the way that it works is that when you install a ShadCN component, it literally is just putting the component and all of its code into a folder inside of your workspace. There's no NPM dependency where you're like importing the component from ShadCN and then you're like kind of changing it. It literally just like copy and paste the code in it. And like this approach has been kind of a favorite of mine since like the WordPress days. Like, do you remember WordPress? Not remember, but WordPress has this idea of child themes, meaning that like you could take like a parent theme and then you could sort of like modify the bits that you want. And I never liked that approach. I like simply just like taking a theme, copy pasting it, and then just being able to get into the code and edit it. There's no like weird dependencies. There's no black box behind that type of thing. And I can see why that is a little bit weird. I think the benefit to that is that you are simply able to own 100% of the code. Similar to like a CSS reset, you're not like getting updates to a specific component. When you bring in a component, that is the component that you are going to use. And if there is a new or updated or bug fixes to any part of that component, then you have to either manually apply them or use some sort of AI to apply them. But typically you just say like, yes, this is the component that I want. And like vulnerabilities, a lot of the ShadCN stuff is not implementing its own logic. It's using other libraries that it leans on. And those libraries can continually be updated. And it's just like if you were to write the component by hand. It's simply just like a bit of a head start in a standard way of creating your components. So I absolutely love that. I don't want to have to like worry about when a component updates, especially because a lot of the ShadCN is about how it looks and like how it actually renders out. And I don't necessarily want it updating and then changing the look or the feel or the functionality of how that works.
Yeah. I would make a couple of like statements here based on like the things that you're worried about, Digital Surfer. I don't believe are things that are real problems. Like, how many times have you had a component that has a vulnerability, like a UI component, like it's a modal, it's a whatever. That's not typically where these types of things live. These are very, show this, hide this, move this,
Yeah.
some CSS, some aesthetics. So like to me, that's not a concern. Two, again, like when a component updates, it's almost always a bad thing, right? When you build something, you don't build it so that it grows as the component updates. You build it so that it works when it's done and ready. And when it's done and ready, typically you're not wanting that component to change unless like you really want, like to me, that's like a
If you want it to
burden.
change, then you change it. Yeah.
Right. That's like a burden to have to worry about a library getting an update and all of a sudden my UI possibly will change. Like I hate that. So especially in the world of now with AI and these types of things, like we can own more of our code. And I argue, and I don't know, like I'm definitely on the edge of the person who's always building my own stuff rather than installing libraries anyways, for a lot of these reasons. I'm building it for my use case, for my site, not as like a general purpose component. So therefore, I don't care as long as it works in my current ecosystem. So I would say a lot of these concerns are concerns that maybe you've developed without having actually experienced them. Like how many times have you actually experienced a vulnerability in a UI component? Or have you been like, ooh, I really need to get this latest update of this selectless component that was written once,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and even then, if there is like for example, let's say there is a something wrong with your select list. Let's say there's an accessibility issue or there's a bug with touch on iOS. That bug is not in ShadCN. It's in the upstream. It's either in Radix UI or Base UI. Those are the component libraries that or those are like the lower level libraries that ShadCN are built on top of. And those things do get updated, right? So if there are bugs, for some reason there is a security vulnerability in one of these, then it's going to be updated. But like you got to think about ShadCN as it's your own code. And as soon as you bring that into your project, you're responsible for maintaining that thing. So what if there's a security vulnerability in your own code? Then yeah, you got to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And if you want to see all of the errors in your application, you'll want to check out Sentry at sentry.io/syntax. You can sign up today and get 2 months for free. Sentry is just a really incredible tool for not only tracking your performance, making sure your application has no bugs, but even just seeing what goes wrong when something goes wrong, because things go wrong all the time when we're coding. And you don't want a production application out there that, well, you have no visibility into in case something is blowing up and you might not even know it. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Again, we've been using this tool for a long time and it totally rules. All right. So, okay, cool. Next question here from Raphael. Next question after this is going to be from Michelangelo. Okay, from Raphael. Why choose PNPM over NPM? Okay, so PNPM is an alternative that many people love, myself included, primarily just because of speed. Now, there's a number of other features that make PNPM cool, which I'll mention, but the big one is that PNPM uses a global store and then symlinks the package version. So that way, if you install, the same package in 5 different projects or whatever, it's still just referencing that one package on your computer system, making it so you don't have to have 10 billion copies of every package you use if you use similar packages throughout projects. Other than that, it's really just very fast because of that. It only has to download what it needs to download, and therefore you're not going to have to grab everything all the time. And in addition, PNPM, they pioneered a lot of features in package managers that, like, for instance, PNPM made it so that you have to approve post-install runs of things. Therefore, that's giving you more security because if I install a bunch of stuff, it can't just run a bunch of code for me after install. I have to approve that it's allowed to do that. Gives you options to limit how, when a package was last published, if you want to go ahead and install that or not. It has baked in update functionality. So PNPM update IL gives you an interactive picker to pick which updates you want, which again, NPM and Node, there's things for this. It's not like there isn't, but like it's all just baked in and
Yeah.
it works really well and it's fast and I just like it. Yeah.
Patching is a huge one for me, is the PNPM patch.
Yeah.
Where if you have a dependency and like there's like some bug upstream, it's really easy to simply just patch that and have it install for you, right? The workspaces are a lot easier. It's faster. It's just like NPM is not necessarily bad, but there's just a lot of little paper cuts and security issues, as we've seen in the last couple months as well, where these things are simply just way easier, way better. I don't even think about this type of stuff anymore. It's just like,
Yeah.
I just use PNPM and it just works. And I'm like, I'm not fussing over how frustrating it is. I don't want to have to spend any amount of time on fussing with any of this stuff. I just know PNPM is the best and I don't have to mess with it anymore. Same with like Yarn was that for a long time, but like I never got into Yarn because it was just weird and half the stuff didn't work. PNPM is just fast. It always works. I know it's going to be secure. You're in good shape.
Yeah, I like PNPM a lot. Again, also another thing, I like not having to use the keyword run, like PNPM.
Yes.
You just do PNPM script name instead of PNPM run. That's so stupid, but it's just like, I don't get, I never got the need to write.
I think the reason why they do that is because PNPM doesn't encompass all of NPM, right? Like there's no like publishing and there's a lot of like stuff that's not built in to PNPM, and it's maybe not stuff that you need. But simply just being able to write PNPM dev, it's the silliest thing ever.
It's silly.
But I hate having to type npm run dev instead of just npm dev.
Also, a PNPM does workspaces really well. They do workspaces,
I just said that. So good.
You said workspaces. Sorry. Yeah. The mono repo stuff inside of PNPM means I don't have to reach for a bunch of other tools, and I love that.
Exactly. Like, what did we used to use? Lerna before PNPM and
Lerna, yeah. So
or
just so much.
What else was there? Yeah, there was just the whole developer tooling space has gotten so good in the last 5 years. Like if you're new to web development, you don't realize how much of a pain this whole space was, especially at the like height of the Webpack days. We just spent days and days building all of our stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Next question we have here from 303875552. I logged into Stack Overflow today purely for sentimental reasons, and I looked at my very first Stack Overflow question. Share your very first Stack Overflow post, the date it was made, and what you were up to at the time. If you want CJ2, please. Okay. I thought this was a kind of an interesting question because like I'm almost embarrassed at some of my early Stack Overflow questions.
Shows growth.
It shows growth. Let me share my screen here a sec. All right. I had over 16 years and 10 months. I've had 155 questions. I was
You've
heavy.
Wow.
Stack Overflow questions. If we go to the very first question I asked was August 17, 2009.
Oh.
That's what, 17 years ago. jQuery cycle questions. Pause, on load, and hover action. So I had a question with jQuery cycle was like this kind of like slideshow, and I wanted for when you hovered over top of it, I wanted it to pause, right? jQuery fade out transparency in IE, right? I wanted Internet Explorer to fade out when you hovered over top of it. jQuery hover is delayed. CSS link spacing and paragraph spacing. So here is the site. The banner image at the site says SNS photography. I'm not going to go into it, but I have some very, very silly and simple questions. And if you look at my highest one, Google Maps API, simple multi-marker example, July 17th, 2010.
That's your highest score on a question?
Highest. I just could not. I just wanted to put the frickin' pins on it. And I think at this time, I was like all jQuery. Like I couldn't do anything other than write jQuery. So using the Google Maps SDK, it was foreign to me because it wasn't jQuery, right? And at the time, everybody would simply just look for a jQuery plugin that did Google Maps or something like that. But I was like, I'm going to use straight up it. And I asked somebody to just give me a simple example of how it's working, and somebody provided that. And I specifically remember building that. That was really fun.
Yeah, my very first one was 2011, and it was about jQuery UI accordion, not
What's your username?
oh, what is it? Tora RTC, Tora RTC. Yes. So, member for 14 years. See, I haven't updated. It still says I live in Ann Arbor,
Ann
Michigan.
Arbor, man.
Yep. Yep. Oh, yeah. My number one question is for Apollo server timeout while waiting for stream data.
You also had a jQuery accordion question about the same time.
Yep. jQuery
We
UI.
didn't even know each other back then.
I know. Meteor had this way of doing async await called fibers, and I was like,
oh yeah,
yeah, you always had to write inside of a fiber. It was kind of obnoxious.
man. What's your very first question though?
My very first question is about the jQuery UI. Basically, hey, this code that I had found on a blog wasn't working, and what's funny is that the suggested one, or the actual answered one, is that this is not directly possible at the time. It was a bug. So
somebody patched jQuery to allow for this. Unbelievable. That was a crazy time. I used to spend time on Stack Overflow and specifically wait for new questions to pop up and try to answer them as fast as possible. And then people would try to scoop in before and answer the question. One kind of interesting thing is Stack Overflow emailed me the other day and they said, hey, we're launching Stack Overflow for agents, meaning that let's give the agents a spot where they can post all of their questions. And I thought, first of all, I was like, that's dumb. Yeah. But then I was like, maybe not. Does it make sense to have a spot for agents to, I don't know necessarily post their questions, but if you solve something that was specifically tricky,
yeah, and
all of that knowledge, where does that go? Maybe back into the data set to be trained on, but you used to write a blog post or you used to put it on Stack Overflow, and then other people could find that. Thousands of people would find these questions that they also hit the exact same issues.
Yeah. And it actually would be nice if AI, because along the same line, I was having issues with my graffiti library. AI doesn't know about it, right? So it's how do you teach AI about it? So AI is going to make assumptions. And instead, the way I've landed on is an MCP that what are you trying to do? I'm trying to build this. And then it gets directly to the answer that it needs faster. So in what if agents were this is the question I'm trying to answer. Let me find all of the times that this question has been answered before and then get answers faster, instead of just either guessing or not guessing, but formulating what it should do in that moment, right? It's looking for validated approaches.
And I think that's good, because often it will just do a workaround or implement sort of a half-assed thing. Whereas if the real answer has been figured out by somebody, should that information be posted somewhere for others to benefit from it? Maybe. I don't know how you possibly even moderate something like this where you're just letting bots post a bunch of content. But maybe the power-hungry Stack Overflow mods will also be interested in moderating all the agents that post questions.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh man, I miss that. Stack Overflow is such a vibe from that era. Just
that was definitely nostalgic. It wasn't great because you would have a question and then you post it and then you wait for sometimes it'd be answered within an hour, but sometimes it would be days before somebody who clicked on your obscure tag found it and went through it to fix the issue.
Kokai Cobb, can we get video on Apple Podcasts, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are waiting for our podcast provider to finally implement it. If for the longest time, Apple Podcasts only allowed video if you had two separate feeds. So you would have the audio feed and you would have the video feed. And there wasn't really a specification in RSS on how it worked. And then Spotify came out and was just like, you know what? Screw the specification.
Yeah.
Just upload it to us, and then we can do it. And it's part of the reason why we moved over to Megaphone, which is owned by Spotify, for hosting, because what that allowed us to do is we could upload the video and the audio at once, and it simply just published it as soon as we have it. Before, we were on Libsyn, and what would happen is our poor producer Randy would have to wait for the audio to be released publicly on the RSS feed, and then he would have to like go at 8 a.m. and upload the video to Spotify because it didn't exist before then. And then you had to wait like 2 hours for the video to actually pop up on Spotify, which is annoying. Now, Apple finally allows video on their podcasts, and we're waiting for our provider, Megaphone. They said it should be about a month or so before they actually do that. So hopefully it'll just show up one day, and the video is starting to be going there. But kind of a sad thing for standards, where like podcasts is like, some people, obviously lots of people, a lot of you listening still use like standard RSS reader clients and whatnot for this type of stuff. But the only way that a lot of this went forward was by just people going around the specification and implementing it themselves.
Yes. I don't know about US. I primarily personally watch or listen to most podcasts in my Pocket Cast audio feed specifically, and only myself. All of the podcasts, rather than getting into video. But for a huge portion of people, video is podcast and podcast is video. Even Netflix got podcasts now. And it's funny because when we were interviewing folks for the initial Syntax producer role, somebody made a big old stink about how podcasts are audio and only audio. And even though I'm interviewing and applying for this job that is a heavy video job, I'm going to show up just to tell you that I don't think podcasts should be video. Very odd choice, but I think it's been validated that podcast is video, even though I listen to most of my podcasts on audio, I think podcast is video.
Podcast is clips a lot now. And podcast is clips. Celebrities now. Like my wife watches the podcast Amy Poehler one, it's kind of nuts. But I don't mind celebrities. What I don't like is the
I do
late night hosts. That happened with early YouTube. Do you remember when like Jimmy Fallon and Colbert started popping up on like the YouTube trending? I remember being like, get out of here. This is not your thing.
This is not your thing. That's how I feel about celebrities. And the celebrities of podcasting is always just like, let me talk to my other rich celebrity friends about their celebrity lives. And, ooh, what is this funny story that you did one time on a TV set? Like, I don't care. I don't care at all. Like you're
a lot of it is
no,
like very clearly like scripted, or they're like, like they're producers in it, and it's just like, ooh, you guys are ruining not ruining it, but you guys are abusing the thing.
I think they're ruining it. Yes, they're ruining it.
That's okay. That's just, no. With a lot of this stuff is you got to play the game, right? Like that's everything that gets popular. People figure out how it is. Social media is even that way as well. You got to play the game if you want your stuff to be seen by other people, which is frustrating, but you can either be mad about it or go along with it. Shivan says, how are proposals and changes implemented into browsers? For example, ECMAScript, JavaScript, TypeScript, Node, CSS, HTML. What is the process from idea to code? How do we follow the process and keep up to date with the happenings? Yeah, so every single like language or browser has like a different process for proposing new APIs, right? Like, so with JavaScript, there is a committee called TC39, and they are simply just concerned with what does JavaScript, the language, look like. This is, I want semicolons here, or I want async await, or I want functions to be able to return like streams, like when we got generators, things like that, right? So they're not like, oh, should we get HTML and Canvas. That's not what TC39 is about. They're simply just like, what does the language look like? And what you do, where you implement the language is totally up to you. You can stick it on the server, you can put it in a browser, you can put it on a microcontroller, whatever you want to do with it. We're just building the language. You figure out where it goes. TC39 has several different stages from stage 0 all the way up to stage 4. We've done many episodes in the past as to like what features, and typically when things start to hit stage 3, or even like they have like a stage 2.7 now, which is when it's been approved, then things are going to be starting to be put into the browser. So you can take a look at the TC39 active proposals, and you can look at them on GitHub. They also have meetings and whatnot that they'll go through a lot of them. Typically when things hit stage 2, they'll start to be behind a flag in Chrome, and you can play with them. And that's the point where if you're like a complaining person, that's the point where you should start using them to, like, HTML and Canvas is exactly that right now, where it's just a proposal. Yeah. We're trying to figure it out. And so many people are playing with it and figuring out what the edges are, which is beautiful, because now we're all saying, hey, I wish it did X, Y, and Z. That feedback is incredibly important at that stage versus when it actually gets shipped, right?
Yes. It's a fascinating process, not one that I have the patience for personally. I'm more of I like this, I don't like this kind of guy.
The people that do the standards process are amazing. So a browser as well, yes. Like CSS has the CSS working group. The browser itself has the WG, the what working group, and they are responsible for like features that actually get implemented in the browser. So like, for example, fetch. Fetch was not a JavaScript feature. It was initially just a browser feature. And that's why we didn't have fetch in Node for so long. And it was standardized, and it has been implemented everywhere now. But if you want to look into that, look at the what working group. CSS also has a CSS working group you can go into, and often there will be subcommittees for these, where like somebody's like the CSS anchor working group, where it's 3 or 4 people that are simply just obsessed with CSS anchor and working through it. That's a good one to look into as well.
Yeah. And sometimes things never leave at all. Sometimes they get just up to the precipice, like decorators, and then come back down. Did you see they moved back down again?
Decorators been around forever.
Yeah, decorators moved down again. Yeah. There was a time when decorators were the only thing I wanted in JavaScript. I used them like crazy. I love decorators in practice. But it's been a long time since I used decorators.
Node, TypeScript, all of these like things that are more projects, they also will have their own weekly meetings and whatnot. And I often find it kind of fun to I don't go to the meetings because I find them not necessarily boring, but they're very low level, and the people that are looking through features are really getting into it. But once things start to look a little bit firmed up, at that point I will start to play around with it and take a look into it. And I feel like that's a pretty good spot for Syntax to be as well, because we can take it from these folks who are like very technical and then make demos, talk about it, whatever, bring it to like the masses, and then people will chime in with their thoughts, which is important for the standards process.
Yeah, I appreciate the folks that are able to do that. All right, next one here from Bike Shredder 9000 or Bike Shredder. Bike Shredder. Ooh, okay, not Bike Shredder. Bike Shredder, those are both actually. Bike Shredder is a pretty cool name. One of my most recent pet peeves is when people talk about AI like it's actually AI. It's not. It's an LLM. It mathematically predicts the next most likely token, all based on the previous set of tokens. My opinion is that the more you understand this, the better you will be at using the tool. It's impressive, and it's very good at text-based tasks like coding, but it's not AI. What do you think? Am I bike shedding? Probably. Bike Shredder, I gotta ask for you, like, what does that mean to be AI then, if it's not just token prediction? Like, how much of what we're doing in our brains is just token prediction? or you have your knowledge that has been gained over time, and your brain is working out the next most probable thing to do. I mean, like, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but like, at what point does it matter the means at
Yeah.
which it is giving you the answers? Now, you can argue like sentience or the Chinese room stuff or any of that. Like, there's so many different angles that you can look at, like what AI actually is. But like, for me, I don't necessarily think the transport really or like the technology of what is AI matters as much to me, as long as it's able to act artificially in
Yeah.
that way. So to me, it being an LLM, I don't personally doesn't disqualify it for me, but I'm not a scientist, so
Yeah, it,
yeah.
it is statistically probable, meaning that like if the LLM providers have to put randomness into it so you don't get the same output every single time. I'm working with Flux images right now, and it literally gives you the
Hmm.
same image every single time that it output. Not exactly the same, but almost exactly the same image every single time with the same input and the same like seed value as well. Um, and that's because you start with the same thing, and it will statistically try to guess what it is that you want. I get it. We get it. We get it that like this is just math at the end of the day, but holy hell, is it good?
Man.
You know, like it's doing
But
exactly
but
what I
also,
want.
isn't reality just math? Like, it's all math. It's all
It's
math all
all
the way
math
down,
all the way
right? Like,
down, except for choosing colors. That's taste. But I don't know. I think like the people that are,
taste is math.
I think that whole trope of like it's not actually artificial intelligence, like who gives a shit? It made a website that is exactly what I wanted in like 6 minutes, or like I told it to write something in a specific way. I took in the inputs of what I wanted, what people wanted, what I had available to me, example code. It took all of those inputs, and it gave me the output that I was looking for, right? It statistically did a great job. So I think
Yeah,
those
totally.
annoying tropes of like, it's just sand that can think is kind of like, yeah, we get it. And it's funny and everything, but
Yeah.
it's a fantastic technology. It's very good. I think.
It's funny. I was almost like, to me, like when you say back, like early in days, I remember saying something about like what the AI knows, and people are like, "The AI doesn't know anything." Yeah, no, it doesn't know anything. Oh,
I think where you can stop it is where people think that it is actually like sentient, where like
yeah,
it has reasoning, yes, because it goes back and forth and it just puts the prompt back into itself, and those steps of saying, maybe I should think about X, Y, and Z. That prompt is great because then it will figure out exactly what you want. But the fact where you get to people being like, it needs a therapist, or it's people are falling in love with it, or um, people think that it
that's
is
crazy to
going
me.
to like, that's something we haven't seen. Is it hasn't yet maybe discovered. It has though. I'm trying to say like it has not discovered things that were not known, but it has been able to like compute math problems that humans haven't been able to do. But maybe that's just the iteration over and over. The problem I have is when people are saying that it is like it's like a live being, and I guess that's
Oh
probably your
yeah,
thing here.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
artificial intelligence. I think we understand what we mean when people say AI.
yeah.
Next
Yes.
question. Anonymous says, I'm about to change companies and work on a React design system. Shh, don't tell my employer just yet. Sorry, too late. We logged your IP address and we figured out who it was and we sent it to them. Coming from a company with a large design system only using HTML, vanilla JS, and pure CSS. But what I'm seeing on big name design systems, think IBM Carbon, Adobe Spectrum. These are all big design systems that these companies have like put out because they have thousands of applications and they need their buttons to look exactly the same across all of them. So what I figured out is that they use very little of the modern native web elements such as dialogue, details, etc., even though their browser support is way good enough already. Are they missing out on the built-in benefits and baked in functionality? Yeah, this is a question that I have myself as well. It's like, where are the design systems using CSS Anchor and dialogue? And like Scott just had an entire talk at React saying this exact thing, right? Like, tell me, rattle off a few of the things that the React developers are not using.
Yeah, React developers, they're not using, one thing that I think a lot of people aren't using, scroll swipe API or scroll snap API in CSS is so much more powerful than a lot of people use it for, like Instagram Reels or swipers or this or that. People are just thinking about these scroll snap APIs being for like carousels. But like the thing that's great about these is so many React components implement that stuff with JavaScript that is like, changing a translation value when you're clicking and dragging. You're always going to get worse FPS than native scroll. Sorry, my dog's huffing and puffing in the background.
Oh, he's gonna yak.
She's going. But yeah, it is so funny. The accordion stuff, like details and summary, are really good. Pop over Anchor. People don't realize that Anchor can even swap when you get close to the edge of the screen, really reducing a ton of extra JavaScript you might need. Where are the libraries for this stuff, man? I don't know. I've been trying to do some of this with my graffiti library to make it like a basis for other things. But again, that's like a whole thing, and yeah, I don't know. What are people missing out on? In the past, it's often been animation. So like the native dialogue doesn't animate. The native details and summary doesn't animate. There's like little things here with the modals, this or that. But like all this stuff can be augmented with JavaScript, or even better now that there's at starting style or allowed discrete for animations, like you can progressively enhance. It's like people look at it as two lanes. It's like you can either use the React component or you can use the browser APIs. They're not like, oh, you can augment the browser APIs with JavaScript to make them what you want. Like that's the world that I live in. So I don't know. With AI, it's like gotten way easier too. Like we were talking about with the ShadCN stuff, to own your components and build them based off browser standards.
I think we have to wait for these new things to make their way into into base UI or ShadCN, because right now it's a hard place, but a lot of people simply do not care about a lot of these new features because they just boop. AI does it all for you, and it works. It does exactly what you wanted. So we are on the spot where like we're finally at a spot where all of these things are in the browser. They're fairly well supported, but a lot of these like lower level libraries, they were built when these things didn't exist, and they're not necessarily just want to have to swap it out. It's kind of tricky to have to swap it out. They're not always one-to-one feature parity, so it would be a lot of work. And I think the people that are doing those things don't necessarily care because everybody's head is just on AI right now. I think we'll probably get to a spot eventually where we'll see a lot of these new component libraries come out that are using them under the hood, using scroll snap and Anchor and dialogue and all these good things. And then you will, and because of that, everybody will simply just start to use those, which is very frustrating. So I think if you were building a design system yourself, I would 100% use all of the new stuff that you possibly could, given what browsers you need to support.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that people don't think about is how much less work you have to do with the native stuff. Like the native dialogue element gives you keyboard support, it gives you focus trapping. Like these things come automatically. You're not having to write, hit the escape key and trigger the close function or any of that stuff. So
I think also is a lot of companies are scared about accessibility because you can get into some real trouble when your site is not accessible. So because of that, you just use React Aria, and that React Aria is going to be accessible, and you don't really have to put a ton of time into making sure that some weird edge case of like your cursor is captured when you click this thing, right? It just does a lot of that for you. So once React Aria starts to implement a lot of these things, then again, we'll be in good shape.
I think a lot of people are using React Bubble, as in they are stuck in their React bubble. That's what I think. Next one from Arun Nambiar. As AI gets better at execution, I keep seeing two camps emerge among early career engineers like me. One camp is trying every new tool, model, framework, and AI workflow to avoid being left behind. They're shipping more than ever, building lots of projects, and moving incredibly fast, but often with a shallow understanding of what's happening under the hood. Any question you ask leads to the reply, why ask me, just ask AI. The other camp is using AI more like senior engineers, accelerating implementation while still focusing on the fundamentals, architecture, debugging, security, and developing deep expertise in a smaller set of technologies. But that means moving slower and potentially missing some trends and being caught in FOMO that everyone's ahead of you. Sorry, my dog is losing her mind. I'm
Okay.
going to send her outside. It's like driving me nuts. Sorry. Let's see. What are we huffing about? There's nothing going on. If you want to leave, you can leave. You don't need to be in. Thank you.
Can we keep that part in? Oh, all right.
Okay. Sorry, folks. So they're either in one camp where they're putting everything to the AI, or the other camp, like senior engineers, where they are focusing on fundamentals, architecture, and debugging. Which approach do you think is more sustainable over the next 5 to 10 years? As AI continues to improve, does it make sense to spend a significant time mastering programming fundamentals? Or is the higher leverage skill becoming the ability to direct AI effectively to get a working solution as quickly as possible? I'm going to take the worst possible answer here and say both of them, because I do think there's different skills there that you should probably learn. Now, how we work with AI models and AI in general is going to change as the models evolve over the next few years,
Yeah.
etc. But understanding the fundamentals, the architecture stuff, being able to debug and really have a good understanding of what the issue is without having to rely on the AI will save you a ton of time and money. I'm trying to think of okay, so last night I got a robot. He's currently shut off, which is why he looks like this, a Reachy Mini. And the Reachy Mini app was crashing, and the camera was intermittently working, and in general, there was something odd going on. You could prompt to infinity to check the logs and do all this, and trust me, I had an AI prompt going about reading the logs, and it kept saying, well, there must be a problem with the servers crashing for some reason. And why is the server crashing? I don't know. Could be these following reasons. And it's just trying stuff. And me, being the smart guy I am, I said, what if there's just something running on the port that the thing is trying to access
Yeah.
it on? And I was like, great idea. So obviously I checked the port and there was something running on it. It was a process that I started a while ago, and I killed it, and then the whole thing just worked. So the story is that I could have prompted until infinity and maybe it would have gotten there. But the fact that I was able to have the fundamental understanding to know why these things might have been crashing allowed me to direct the AI and validate that so much faster. So I think you need to get both, because people who are good at prompting and can get something that looks great at the end of the day, works well, that's a whole skill in itself. But you'll get there faster if you know what the heck you actually want.
I think I tend to agree with that, because on one aspect of it, like the people that are so nitty gritty into something, like I think about the Pierre computer guys that we had on, where they were so obsessed with the performance of a diff and so obsessed with the performance of a tree, of like a sidebar of files, how quickly that could be rendered, that they just went low deep on that. And you would think, like, with AI, do we need to care about how like a sidebar renders these days, but maybe the opposite is true. And they were using all these AI tools to figure out, how do you make this thing even faster? So I think on some regard, like, yeah, like going deep on specific aspects to get the best performance. But then at the same regard, like the higher level architecture things are going to be super important as well, because man, oh man, I have made a lot of these like vibe coded apps, and I'm just like not happy with them after spending 3 or 4 days on them. And at that point, like probably all of you listening have done this as well, where you're like, I have this awesome idea, I'm going to build this, and then it's just not very good. You didn't really
Yeah,
spend a lot of the time on like, yes, it's very good at
it's
writing
disposable.
it's disposable, and it's very good at writing the actual code, but what you want it to do, how you want it to function, what the UI looks like, what the flow for this thing is, what the architecture looks like for performance, and how much it costs to host this thing. A lot of those like higher level decisions of like steering and is going to be super important in order to make something that is genuinely very good. We're not so much worried about like what functions to write and how to like organize your files anymore, but we certainly are very much like I even think about like this app that we're using right now, like Riverside, right? They just redid the whole thing, a whole bunch of performance. There's like so many hard problems in real-time
Mm.
video that also records to the browser, right? It's problems all the way down with like frame jitter and drop frames and slow internet connections and echo cancellation, right? It's just problems all the way down. And it's like writing the actual code to like make these buttons and whatnot is not the hard part anymore, but it's more about like, how do we build something that's like very good that people actually want at the end of the day? Because there's certainly a lot of very crappy software out there.
And there's only going to get more. There's only going to be more.
I
Yes.
have a hard
Yes.
time answering these questions for people who are new. The answer like, hey, I'm new
Right.
to coding. What should I do? Like it used to just be like, spend some time on the fundamentals and also spend some time getting very good at the things that are popular right now, right? Spend a whole bunch of time on React,
Yeah.
understand how databases work, build a full stack application so you can understand how all of these click together. And I think that certainly still is important, but it's less so. And then there are all these newbies like having a hard time finding jobs as well, right? Because we're in kind of a slump in the market right now. A lot of people are firing because they think they can kick it off to AI. So I'm not really sure what I would tell somebody who's brand new to this, because it's hard to be like, well, welcome to coding. Start really thinking about your like WebSocket performance when it's spanned across the globe. It's like you can't do that as a newbie, right? That's stuff that's gained over years and years, and I don't know, man. That's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. We used to lament how often we got the question that was like, "Oh, we can't answer this question again because we've answered it 10,000 times." And it feels like now is like the time where like, I feel like I need to answer this question every other month to give you a
Mm-hmm.
different answer on, what new people should learn here, because I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
changing that rapidly.
I think like the only thing that hasn't changed is simply building stuff is going to help you learn.
Yeah.
And if you are able
Yes.
to build way more and way larger stuff now that you have AI, and the lessons that you have, like you're going to go down so many rabbit holes. And I will tell you, please go down those rabbit holes and deeply understand the problems that you hit rather than just swearing into the box for the AI to figure it out. Because when you fully,
Yeah.
deeply understand what these problems are and how you could possibly tackle and solve them, that is going to make you a better developer, but the better person who makes things, whatever we're called right now.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't love skills. I mean, I like skills, but I don't love skills in general in AI. But the grill me skills and that style of like go back and forth with me until every question has
Yeah.
been answered, like forces you to be involved in the process so much more, where you are answering all the questions and then it's like presenting you with conflicting ideas, like you say you want this, but this is also a problem in these ways. Like it can get you really thinking. So I like having an AI QA me on many things. I did that for our JS Nate or for my React Summit talk where they have to do the live Q&A on stage. I said, here's my talk. Grill me on every single question that's going to be asked of me. And then it just went back and forth. And I had to come up with the answers myself. It's not like I'm using the AI to get the answers. It's like, let me understand this more
Mhm.
deeply. So, yeah. Last question here from Bob. No question, just wanted to add to your recent answer about scammers and them trying to make you run malicious repos. They have another level. Please tell your listeners not to even open the repos with Cursor or VS Code. They are now adding scripts to run on IDE Open to swoop your global env and send it out. Also, the interviews seem almost legit. They even go on Google to meet you dressed up nicely and talk about the fake job and your experience, and then slip the part of them wanting to do some technical coding challenge and try to make you open the repo with an IDE right there on the call. Man, the balls on some of these people. My
So
God. Yeah.
for anyone who didn't hear that one, there was some people who had been going through interviews, and part of the interview was you had to do like a coding challenge, and they said, all right, just clone this repo and whatever. And he thought, that seems a bit odd. Let me just ask Claude if there's anything weird in this repo. And there was like all kinds of malicious stuff that was trying to steal your secrets. And it looks like simply, when you open up a new folder in like a VS Code or Cursor, it's like, do you trust this folder? I'm assuming that is because VS Code has these like tasks, right? And I didn't even realize this, but they could probably run automatically like on lint or on something like that. I didn't realize. I always wondered that, like, why you ask me if I trust this code? Like, what are you doing with this code? But I guess, there could be tasks that automatically spin up like Docker images or whatever, and or just like CLI scripts that will try to steal everything. So if you are interviewing, not to say that it's a brutal space, I would be so pissed if somebody wasted my time thinking like, oh, I took time off work, now I'm having this interview, and you're simply just trying to screw me and steal my like AWS keys. Bad world. There's a lot of awful people out there right now that are surfacing with this newfound tech, as these bad people can now actually build stuff.
Yeah, that's so dumb. Right? At least before, bad people were like, how do I computer? Now, I got to go somewhere and install a physical credit card
skimmers.
Credit card
yes.
scammer. I was like, credit card scammer. Yes, I got to go install a credit card.
How often do you still swipe your card in the States? We were talking about this in Europe, how like they take the like credit card away at a restaurant in the States. They like, you pay with your credit card and they take it away to the machine. We were saying how like I haven't done that in Canada. They haven't taken it away in probably 10, 15 years.
I was just at a restaurant on Friday that took my credit card away, and I was just thinking, just bring the thing to my table. Like every good place that's not the U.S. does. I don't know. It's most of them. I would say there are a handful of them that have moved to the bringing it to your table, but it's few and far between in my experience.
That's crazy. And do you still at a restaurant? You swipe the magnetic strip?
I don't know what they do. They take it back, and I think they do the thing. You don't see them do it.
When I first signed up for Stripe in, I think it was 2010, maybe 2012. I had to like fill out all these forms, and like Visa literally mailed me those like carbon copy papers that you put in in the olden days, your credit card had like raised numbers, and you would go gunk to like charge somebody's credit card. So when I signed up for Stripe, that's how old I am, they sent me those papers, and I was like, and they sent me a little sticker that says Visa accepted here. Like you put it on the door of your business. And it was obviously just like a merchant onboarding thing that they had to go through. But I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. I worked at Target, and I had to do those things. Also, I also worked at a ski hill where I had to do those as well.
Oh man, I worked at Tim Hortons, but at the time it wasn't debit. It was cash only, which is wild to think.
So before we get out of here, let's do some sick picks. These are things that we find to be sick, things that we really like or enjoy that we're having a good time with. Yes, sick picks. Man, you know what? I'm going to sick pick, Wes. My son and I have been getting into Warhammer 40K. It's just like painting miniatures. I played Warhammer when I was in high school, but I know people are like often looking for things to do, creative things to do with their kids. I gotta say, painting little miniatures, even though it's an expensive hobby, Man, it's been a ton of fun to do with them. So like it's whether that is 40K or Warhammer, whatever. We went into the store, we got to go pick out a box for his birthday and it had like a basic kit in it. And then we're sitting down with the little tiny paintbrushes and painting these little figurines. And like I said, I used to do it when I was a kid. And my God, it's been a lot of fun to do with him and see like creatively what he wants to do and like I don't know. Our son is he's not the best at focusing. He has, I would say, zero focus. And this is like one of the main times I've ever seen him really focus on something. And that has been just a joy to watch. So little hobbies like that. Warhammer, 40K, a lot of fun.
I'm going to sick pick a baby gate or pet gate if you've got pets. And I have seen the rise of baby gates getting better and better over the last 11 years of having children. Like when I first had kids, the baby gates were these like pain in the ass wooden ones where you had to like pressure fit it and like you touched it and it fell down. So obnoxious. And now, babe, I know people like to like hate on like Amazon Chinese sellers, but like some of these products on Amazon get better every 3 months. And we've bought, I don't know, probably 6 of these baby gates that are they roll out. So you basically you bolt it to one side of the door or like the stairs, and then you put the little hooks on one side, and then you pull it out. And the how easy they are to now undo and like just pull out, and then how nice they look when they just roll up beautifully. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are like
yeah.
thinking like, I need to keep my silly dog out of here, or like you got kids coming up, the Amazon baby gates, they're all under these stupid names, but the ones that simply just like roll up and pull out, they are fantastic now. The latest iteration of them, they have this like big paddle that you just have to slap, they lock, and then you have to like push in, and the kids can't figure it out, but adults can, which is always the like delicate balance.
Yeah. I love that. I didn't know the world had changed.
It's good.
Well, that's all I got for you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll catch you later. Peace.
Peace.